Welcome back to Living with a Classic and this beautiful 1974 Vanden Plas Double Six. It's a customer car in for a little bit of work, some brakes, some tune-ups and some things. So I thought I'd try a new thing. I do get quite a bit of customer work and we're going to get into that. It's going to be even more customer work in the future here on the channel. And I still want to show you guys sometimes because some of you guys find it interesting seeing cars that aren't mine. So I thought I'll do a thing where it'll be sort of like two videos. One where we go over the car, have a look at it before, and I'll show some of the things I'll fix. And then in the video, might be a couple of weeks later or something, you'll see the car finished, leaving and ready, and hopefully hear it run a lot better. So let's do a quick walk around of the outside here. It's a very beautiful car. Then we'll pull it inside and we'll do some of the troubleshooting I need to do on it later tonight, and I'll bring you guys along for that. I hope you guys are going to like my new idea here of showing some customer cars, so let me know in the comments down below what you think. So this is a 1974 Vanden Plas Double Six, and absolutely a gorgeous car in my opinion. It has one of my favorite interiors, the Series 2 Vanden Plas interior. And it's very similar to a Series 3 Daimler Double Six interior. A regular Daimler Double Six interior for Series 2 was very similar to a regular XJ12 interior. It wasn't until you got the this little badge here on the back where you got the quite special interior, all the extra chrome, vinyl top and everything. It's a 1974 model, so it's on carbs. Customers had it for a little bit and he's done a little bit of work to it. There's work left to be done. Something has happened there to the sill, so that's primer, so a bit of the paint fell off, so he's going to have the sills repainted, at least that side. There was a bit of a mark or a tear or something I think on that seat, so this has been off and fixed now, and he sent me a picture. It looks absolutely fantastic. Other than that, I'd say it's in good shape for its age. Being 1974, it is on carbs, and that's really why it's here. People seem to have issues getting these carbs set up. Let me just, it has one of these. I haven't seen them before. Usually it's a sort of automatic lock there on the other series cars. I mean, I haven't seen every single one, but at least I've dealt with 20 or 30 of them. So that's a little different. On that, 5.3 liter pre-HEV 12 on 4 Stromberg carbs. It doesn't pull well. It doesn't really want to idle. It doesn't really want to start cold, and lots of things. The first thing I saw immediately when they opened up in here was, well, two things. One of them is there's quite a bit of new things in here, so that's a good thing. For instance, you can see there's a new return valve. You can also see that the plugs aren't ancient. They're not rusty. They're not brand new, but they're not ancient. And all of the coolant hoses are new. So that's really, really good news. Belts look pretty good as well. One thing I also saw immediately is you can tell that the carbs are not set up correctly. If someone's done this to try and raise the idle, you see it's supposed to return all the way there, and these are the last things you adjust. You set everything else, and then these rods are adjustable. So I'm going to go through the carbs. I'm going to take off the tops to see what the I can't think today what the diaphragms look like, see if they're in okay shape, because everything else has been gone through so much. My guess is someone has actually rebuilt the cars pretty recently, but probably haven't gotten the setup correct. So otherwise, I do have a carb kit laying around for 4 of these. So that's really the thing. Let me see what it runs like now. I drove it a couple hours ago, so it's not a complete cold start, but let's see if it wants to. The other thing is, I think the brake servo is bad on it. It is, inspected on the road, so the brakes are even and they're pretty all right, but they don't feel as good as brakes are supposed to feel on one of these. So it definitely feels like the servo is not doing anything, so I'm gonna have a look at that. But let's see. So before, it wants to flood pretty much immediately with some choke. So when cold, I've started it sort of without, and then as it fires up, I pull the choke. So let's see if I can even do this, because this might be a two-handed thing. You see, like that, and then I have been able to give it a little bit of choke to maintain it. So that fired up fantastically well. It's been sitting for a day or so. I've drained the battery again. It's been going. So definitely needs some setup. I'm just going to drive into the workshop. Then a little bit later tonight, we'll have a look at the carbs, and we'll do a vacuum test on the vacuum booster. But let me just, you can probably hear it is not running well. Let me get it off choke, and yeah, or let's give it a little bit so it doesn't die. But it is not 12 cylinders of happiness. It is down on 2 on that side, and hey, we got all 6 on that. That's pretty good. So it's a 10 cylinder at the moment. And yeah, it's gutless, doesn't really pull that well. So definitely something wrong with timing or carburation or both. I've done a couple tests here. Can't really pull any vacuum on it with this. If I use a hose and just my mouth, feels like a tiny bit, but not as much as a good one. So I compared it with the one over here, which is in working order. So what I want to do now, I just sort of drove it back and forth and got a feel for what the brakes feel like. It's really like the pedal is basically hitting a brick wall. And I thought we'd disconnect this here. Sorry about the lights, a bit dark. I'm going to disconnect that, and I'll plug that with a bolt so we don't have a massive vacuum leak, and we'll see if there's a difference. If there's no difference, then definitely something going on with the servo. I plugged it with a drill bit. Let's see if there's any difference now. Brake pedal feels the same, still really stiff. It's worse. It's definitely worse. So it's probably doing something, but probably not too much. I'm gonna plug it back in and get a feel for it again. Servo's plugged in again. Okay, pedal goes down a little bit further now, so it's doing something. Yeah, it is doing something. So not the servo, but something else is going on, because the brakes, they're not terrible, but they're not as good as they should be. So let's remove one of the front wheels and just have a look at what they look like at least. Alright, so after a little bit of investigating, I think we're going to need to rebuild the calipers. Discs look pretty good, and so that's had new discs and pads relatively recently, but I mean, these cars don't get driven very much, so it's hard to say. Brake hose is pretty new, and there was no buildup in pressure in there, so just a slight dribble out there when I opened the bleeder, and I can't get the pistons to go in just with, you know, a regular set of pliers, which I should be able to. And they look to be the original style pistons. I can see some pitting on them. So that seems to be the case. I'm gonna have a look at the rears as well, but I'll do that, you know, later. So when you see the car next time, you'll see maybe it's got new brakes, maybe not. So let's go up and have a look at the carbs and see if they need a rebuild or if it's just a tuning. So I've had a lot of fun. As you know, if you're a viewer of the channel, I absolutely love these carbureted early V12s. Yes, they're thirsty, but they run so well when they're set up correctly. When they're not, they run terrible, like this one. Found some interesting things. This is sort of a basic thing I like to do. If I haven't seen one of these before, I will pull some plugs, one from each bank. I will have a look in the carbs because it's not running well, and have a look at these diaphragms here, make sure that they're not torn, because if they are, you get an air leak and the piston will not sit at the correct height. And I pulled the distributor cap, Make sure that the rotor moves freely. It does. So the weights and everything are fine and not gummed up. I will pull it and just service it, put a couple drops of oil in there. I found that on the early distributors that are not vented, like the ones on the later cars, like when the HE came out, for some reason they don't seem to gum up as bad as the HE ones. Most HE cars that I get, which have been not serviced correctly, that thing is always stuck. Other than that, I found a couple interesting things. And the fun thing was, the last thing I did was pull the plugs, but I already knew what they were going to look like. Because on Stromberg carbs, I mean, it's different for different types of Stromberg carbs, but the ones used on the V12, you set the mixture with a tool that goes in here and adjusts a little Allen screw. And you see how far in that base of the needle is sitting? And they're both the same on this side. Let me show you the other side. The other side is a bit more the way it should be. If you notice, there's a black ring at the base of the needle. That should basically be flush with the housing. That is your basic setting. When it's flush with like the piston housing, I take a small little straight edge, like a little razor blade or something, and I check that they are. That is how I like to set them up initially, and then of course I run it and, you know, adjust them if need be. However, when they are set at the basic, I think it's just top of my head, if it's half a turn in each direction or 3/4 of a turn in each direction, this is the maximum that you should adjust it on a well-working engine. So that side's very rich. And then I pulled some plugs. So we can start with the one from the B bank. Not too bad. A bank is filthy rich, which we already knew was going to be like because we had a look at that. Also, it was smoking out of that tailpipe. The exhausts are not connected. They're two separate 6-cylinder engines, basically. So that is good. We know what this thing needs. Needs possibly plugs. We're going to see. I don't think they're that old. Maybe we'll clean them up or we'll get new ones. I'll talk to the owner. Set the carbs and yeah, check the ignition. Go through that. I'm also going to put a vacuum gauge on. Let me feel which way the vacuum line is here. Yeah, vacuum line is pointing that way. So this is a vacuum retard, which is common on the carbureted cars, with especially late carbureted ones with all these air rails and everything. So we're going to check the timing on that. We're going to check that that works. And yeah, this thing should be running really well after that. That is it for this video. I hope you guys like my new idea of showing you customer cars, and I'll show you sort of my first overview, how I have a look at it. This car is unknown to me and not running well, so I want to have a look at it. If after setting up the carbs, it still doesn't run well, of course I do a compression test or something, but it has good oil pressure and it's not making weird noises, and the carbs are set so terribly that I probably think that is why. If all the carbs seem really good and all the linkage and everything wasn't messed with, then I'll probably run a compression test first. But I'm doing it this order. I did have another carbureted car in here where the linkage and everything looked pretty good and everything seemed adjusted, and did run a compression test on that first and confirmed that it was a good engine before we went ahead with doing a lot of things with it, and that ended up finding stuff inside the carbs that were completely wrong, the wrong needles and things. That was more of a deep dive. Anyways, hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and share it with friends. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. It really does help out a lot. And then you'll see this video or a video on this car a little bit in the future when it's already on the road, and we'll take it for a test drive and see how it really feels like, because these do pull really well with carbs. They're so smooth, they're so quiet, they run great. Till next time, I'm Adam. This is Living with a Classic. I'll see you soon.